So where did the idea of unending torment come from? In one statement, it's summed up like this, that it came from pagan Greek philosophy's immortality of the soul doctrine versus the Bible teaching of divine creation. Next slide. Socrates and his pupil Plato and his successor Aristotle, along with many other Greek philosophers, taught something that many of us grew up hearing and thinking came from the Bible, but actually is not found in the Bible and came from pagan Greek philosophy. And that is the teaching of the immortality of the soul. When I was a kid, I can remember in revival meetings the preacher saying everybody has an immortal soul that will spend eternity either in heaven or in hell. And I just thought, well, if the preacher said it, it must be so, and it must be in the Bible somewhere. But what I discovered was, upon thorough study, the Bible never teaches that everybody has an immortal soul. In fact, the Bible never teaches that anybody has an immortal soul, except as God makes us immortal through His gift of salvation. Socrates and Plato and other Greeks, however, many other Greeks, not all of them, did believe in the immortality of the soul, and this is what they meant by that expression. They believed that the human being has two main parts which can be separated, and one is the body, which is made of earthly elements and which is mortal, meaning that it's capable of dying. And then they believe that the body is inhabited like a cage, like a squirrel in a cage. Inside our body there's living something they refer to as the immortal soul. And they believe that souls had always existed from eternity and would always continue to exist. And they believe that when you are born, a little bit of this immortal soul that's out there wherever souls come from comes into your body and gives your body life. And that's the real part of you, and that's the part of you that will live forever. And the body is like a cage that the soul is in. And when you die, the soul leaves the body, and the body perishes, and the soul goes back to where souls came from, and is immortal, meaning it cannot die. So immortal just means cannot die or deathless. Mortal means capable of death or something that can die. I remember when I was doing this research, one particular day I took a break and was walking around the block near our house in Alabama. And my best friend from third grade forward, who I thought was going to be here today, Joe, you let me down, lived down the street from me, and he was out in his yard, and he said, "What are you working on?" And I told him because he knew the general project. I said, "I was just working today on the idea of the immortal soul." And he said, "By the way, where did that idea come from?" I said, "Well, it's interesting you would ask right now, because I was just reading about that, and I was actually reading in a work called the Phaedo, P-H-A-E-D-O, written by Plato, and it's about the death of Socrates. And when Socrates was condemned by the Athenians for teaching new ideas, basically, and drank the hemlock and died as his way of execution, he had his disciples gathered around him, his philosopher students, and he talked to them about life and death. And he was trying to encourage them not to feel sorry for him, because he was about to go back to where immortal souls came from, and they had to still live in their mortal bodies, and that was a terrible kind of thing to be putting up with. But he said the true philosopher is happy when he thinks of death, because that's freeing the soul from the body, and the soul can go back to where it came from. That's where the idea of immortal soul started. The Greek philosophers, at least in that form. Next slide.